The massive alien ship appeared without warning above Earth's moon. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ship stretched 15 kilometers from end to end, covered in strange metals that glowed with purple light. Its weapons could be seen even from Earth's surface, giant tubes that pointed down at the small blue planet like the fingers of death. President Hansu stood in the emergency meeting room deep under the White House. Around the table sat the most important people on Earth. Admiral So-Young wore her Navy uniform, her face calm but her eyes worried. Director Min-ho from Earth. Intelligence kept checking his tablet, reading reports that came in every few minutes. General He-jin sat straight in her chair, her military training showing in every movement. The alien message played again on the big screen. The creature speaking looked like a tall human, but its skin was gray and its eyes were completely black. It wore clothes that seemed to be made of liquid metal. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Thelvax of the Valian Empire. Your world has been chosen to join our great civilization. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. All weapons must be destroyed. All military forces must stand down. Your leaders will be taken to serve the Empire in other worlds. If you refuse, your planet will be destroyed. Every man, woman, and child will die. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We have done this 300 times before. You are not special." The message ended. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Outside, they could hear sirens going off across the city. The whole world was panicking. "How many ships do we have?" President Hansu asked. Admiral So-Young looked at her papers. 43 ships that can fight in space. Most of them are old. Our best ship is only 5 years old, but compared to that thing..." She pointed at the screen. "We might as well be throwing rocks." Director Min-ho spoke up. "Our satellites show the alien ship has weapons that could destroy entire cities with one shot. They also have smaller ships inside the big one, at least 200 fighters." General He-jin hit the table with her fist. "We can't just give up. Humans have never surrendered without a fight. Our ground forces are ready. If they land troops, we'll make them pay for every meter of Earth." "They won't need to land troops," Admiral So-Young said sadly. "They can just burn the planet from space. Kill everyone from up there." President Hansu stood up and walked to the window. Even through the thick walls underground, he could feel the fear of millions of people above. Children were crying. Families were saying goodbye. The whole world thought this was the end. But Hansu knew something the others in the room didn't know, something only he and Admiral So-Young shared. He looked at her across the table. She gave him a small nod. "We need to buy time," Hansu said. "Send a message to the aliens. Tell them we want to talk. Tell them we need more time to convince our people to surrender." "Sir, with respect," General He-jin said, "talking won't save us. We should fight while we still can." "No," Hansu said firmly. "We talk. Admiral So-Young, prepare our ships for a peaceful meeting. Take 12 of our best ships to meet with the aliens. Bring surrender documents." The Admiral nodded. "Yes, sir. I'll leave in 6 hours." Director Min-ho looked confused. "Are we really going to surrender, just like that?" Hansu sat back down. He looked tired, like he was carrying a great weight. "We're going to do what we must to save humanity. Sometimes the best way to win is to look like you're losing." The meeting broke up. People rushed out to prepare for what everyone thought was Earth's final surrender. But Hansu and Admiral So-Young stayed behind. "Are you sure they're ready?" Hansu asked quietly. "They've been ready for 20 years, So-Young replied. "The question is whether we can keep the show going long enough." The Valians are proud. They like to see their enemies beg. We can give them what they expect. So-Young smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. They have no idea what they've walked into. Across the world, emergency broadcasts told people to stay calm and prepare for the worst. Families crowded into underground shelters. Cities went dark as power was saved for essential services. The military moved into position, but everyone could see they were badly outnumbered. In space, the Valian ship waited like a dark cloud over humanity's future. Inside, Ambassador Thelvax watched Earth's frantic preparations with satisfaction. Another primitive world was about to join the Empire. It was always the same. First came fear, then desperate attempts to negotiate, then complete surrender. After that, the Empire would take the best humans to serve as workers on other worlds. The rest would be left on Earth to mine resources for their new masters. Thelvax had done this many times before. Humans seemed no different from any other species. They were soft, emotional, and weak. They built their cities in the open instead of hiding them. They broadcasted their fear across radio waves for everyone to hear. They had no unity, different countries with different languages, always fighting among themselves. The ambassador looked at the reports his scouts had gathered. Earth's technology was at least 50 years behind Valian science. Their fastest ships were slower than Valian cargo vessels. Their most powerful weapons couldn't even scratch Valian armor. This would be easy. But in the deepest parts of Earth's oceans, in caves hidden under Antarctica's ice, in secret bases built inside hollow asteroids, other preparations were being made. Machines that had been sleeping for decades slowly came to life. Signals began to travel through space, but not on any frequency the Valians were watching. The trap was being set, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. But the Valian Empire had no idea that their easiest conquest was about to become their final mistake. Captain Jaewu stood on the bridge of the Earthship Peaceful Dawn. It was one of Earth's older destroyers, built 15 years ago and showing its age. Paint was chipped off the walls. Some of the screens flickered when the ship turned. The engine made strange noises that worried the crew. Perfect. Behind him, 11 more Earthships followed in formation. They all looked just as old and tired as the Peaceful Dawn. Their hulls were dented from asteroid impacts. Their weapons were clearly outdated. Any alien looking at this fleet would see exactly what they expected. A desperate, weak attempt at diplomacy by a doomed world. "Sir," said Lieutenant Yunji from her station, "the Valian ship is responding to our request. Ambassador Thelvax will meet with us in 2 hours." Jaewu nodded. "Good. Make sure our surrender documents are ready. And remember, everyone, we're scared. We're desperate. We're hoping they'll show mercy to poor little Earth." The crew smiled grimly. They had practiced this performance many times. Every person on these ships knew exactly how to act. They would beg and plead and offer everything Earth had in exchange for their lives. They would make the aliens feel powerful and superior. While the negotiation fleet moved slowly toward the massive alien ship, Earth itself was putting on its own show. News broadcasts showed terrified crowds running through the streets. Military leaders gave speeches about humanity's dark hour. President Hansu appeared on television looking old and defeated. "My fellow humans," he said to the cameras, "we face an enemy beyond our ability to fight. I have sent our best diplomats to negotiate for our survival. We must prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. All civilians should report to emergency shelters. All military personnel should prepare for evacuation procedures." In the cities, sirens wailed constantly. Families crowded into subway stations and underground parking garages. Schools closed. Stores ran out of food as people bought everything they could carry. The highways were jammed with cars heading away from major cities. It looked exactly like a world in panic, but not everyone was running away. In Antarctica, Director Minho stood in a control room carved out of solid ice. The room was filled with computers and screens showing information from around the world. Technicians worked quietly at their stations, their breath visible in the cold air. "Status report," Minho said to his team. "Deep space stations 7 through 12 have gone offline as planned," reported technician Yoon. "Valian sensors think they're just broken equipment. Relay beacons are activating on schedule," added technician Park. "The quantum communication network is fully operational." Minho looked at the biggest screen, which showed a map of the solar system. Tiny dots of light were appearing in the empty spaces between planets. Each dot represented a signal being sent to coordinates far beyond where any normal telescope could see. "How long until the first response?" he asked. 18 hours, sir. They need time to decrypt and confirm." "Good. Make sure all civilian evacuations look real. The Valians need to believe we're really panicking." Above ground, the evacuation did look completely real, but the people getting on the emergency trains and buses weren't running away in fear. They were following a plan that had been prepared for 20 years. Every person knew exactly where to go. Every shelter had been stocked with supplies months ago. Every evacuation route had been tested and practiced. The civilians weren't hiding from the aliens. They were getting out of the way so Earth's real defenders could work. Admiral Kyung-soo commanded Earth's main fleet from the bridge of the New Horizon. His ships were positioned around the Moon and Mars in what looked like a desperate defensive formation. The formation was full of holes that any military academy student could spot. His weapons were pointed in the wrong directions. His ships were spread too thin to support each other. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the Valian ship is scanning our positions. They seem satisfied with what they see." "Excellent," Kyung-soo replied. "Make sure our engine emissions show that half our ships are having power problems, and have some of our weapons systems malfunction during their scans." "Yes, sir." "Shall I send another message to the civilian evacuation ships?" "Yes. Something about needing more medical supplies and asking for any ships that can help with refugee transport. Make it sound desperate." The admiral looked out at space where the giant Valian ship hung over Earth like a dark cloud. Soon, he thought. Very soon these aliens would learn what happened when they threatened Earth. But first, the show had to continue. On the Valian ship, Ambassador Thelvax watched Earth's pathetic attempts at defense with amusement. The human fleet was poorly positioned and clearly using old technology. Their evacuation efforts were chaotic and disorganized. Their leaders looked defeated before the battle had even started. "Admiral Korath," he said to his military commander, "how long would it take to destroy their orbital defenses?" 30 minutes at most," Korath replied. "Their ships are slow and their weapons are weak. We could destroy them all without taking any damage." "And their planet?" 6 hours to eliminate all major cities. 12 hours to make the surface uninhabitable. It would be a simple matter. Thelvax nodded with satisfaction. Another easy conquest for the Empire. These humans would surrender quickly once they realized how hopeless their situation was. But far beyond the edge of the solar system, in the cold darkness between stars, something began to stir. Ancient systems that had been waiting patiently for decades started to wake up. Engines that worked on principles the Valians couldn't imagine began to power up. The Shadow Fleet had received Earth's call. In her private quarters on the moon base, Admiral So Young received an encrypted message on a device that didn't officially exist. The message was short: package confirmed. Delivery in progress. Estimated arrival, 36 hours. She deleted the message and prepared to join the surrender negotiations. Soon, the Valians would get exactly what they deserved. But first, Earth had to keep looking helpless for just a little longer. The stage was set. The actors were in place. And in the darkness of space, the real power was moving into position. The Empire had no idea what was coming for them. Ambassador Thelvax sat in his command chair, watching the small human ships approach. The meeting would be a formality. These primitive beings would offer everything they had, and he would accept their surrender. Then the Empire would add another world to its collection. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human fleet is requesting permission to dock. They say they have surrender documents." "Let them come aboard," Thelvax said with amusement, "but scan them thoroughly. These creatures might be stupid enough to try some kind of desperate attack." The scans showed exactly what he expected. The humans carried no hidden weapons. Their ships were filled with old technology and poorly maintained equipment. Even their life support systems were failing on 2 of the vessels. Captain Jae-woo stepped into the Valian conference room an hour later. He looked exactly like what Thelvax expected from a defeated enemy: tired, scared, and desperate. The human's uniform was wrinkled. His hands shook slightly as he set down the surrender documents. "Honored Ambassador," Jae-woo said, his voice trembling, "Earth offers its complete surrender. We ask only that you spare our children. Take whatever you want, but please don't hurt the innocent ones." Perfect, Thelvax thought. They were begging already. "Your surrender is acceptable," the ambassador replied coldly. "However, the terms are non-negotiable. All military forces will be destroyed. All leaders will be taken to serve the Empire on other worlds. The remaining population will work to provide resources for our civilization." Jae-woo's face went pale. But you said you would spare us if we surrendered." "I said I would not destroy your planet immediately. You will live but as slaves to the Empire." The human captain looked crushed. He gathered the documents with shaking hands. I need to report back to Earth. My leaders are waiting for your answer." You have 6 hours, Thelvac said. Then we begin the bombardment of your military installations. As the human ships departed, the ambassador felt satisfied. Another easy victory. These humans were no different from any other species the Empire had conquered. But on the bridge of the peaceful dawn, Captain Jaewu was no longer trembling. His hands were steady as he activated a communication device hidden in his jacket. "This is Jaewu," he said quietly. "The fish has taken the bait." "Repeat, the fish has taken the bait." The response came immediately. Message received. All units proceed to final positions. On Earth, the final act of the deception began. President Hansu appeared on every television and radio station in the world. He looked broken, defeated. "My fellow humans," he said sadly, "the aliens have refused our offer of peaceful surrender. They demand that we become their slaves. Our military leaders tell me we cannot win against their superior weapons. In 6 hours, they will begin destroying our defenses. I ask everyone to remain calm and pray for a miracle." The president paused, looked directly into the camera, and said words that sounded like defeat, but carried a very different message to those who knew how to listen. "We stand together in Earth's darkest hour. Let all our scattered children remember who we really are." Across the galaxy, ancient communication relays picked up those words and translated them into hundreds of different languages. The message was simple. It's time. On the Valian ship, Ambassador Thelvax prepared to give the order to attack. Earth's pitiful defenses were exactly where his scouts had said they would be. Admiral Kyung-Soo's ships were still scattered in their weak formation around the moon. The planet below showed no signs of hidden weapons or secret technology. "Begin bombardment of their lunar installations," he commanded. But before the Valian weapons could fire, something impossible happened. The space around Jupiter went completely black. It wasn't the normal darkness of space. This was something else, an absence of light so complete that it hurt to look at. The blackness moved, flowing like liquid shadow across the solar system. "What is that?" Thelvax demanded. His sensors operator stared at his screens in confusion. I don't know, sir. Our instruments show nothing there, but we can see it with our eyes." Then the darkness began to take shape. Ships materialized out of the void, but they weren't like any ships the Valians had ever seen. These vessels seemed to be made of shadow itself. They absorbed light instead of reflecting it, creating holes in space where stars should have been visible. The lead ship was massive, larger even than the Valian dreadnought. Its hull curved and twisted in ways that didn't follow normal engineering principles. Smaller ships emerged from behind asteroids, rose from Jupiter's moons, and appeared from hiding places throughout the solar system. "How many?" Thelvax whispered. 812 vessels, his sensors operator reported, his voice shaking. "Sir, our scans show technology we don't recognize. These aren't human ships." But then a communication came through on all frequencies. The voice was female, calm, and completely confident. It belonged to Admiral So Young, broadcasting from the bridge of the flagship event Horizon. "Ambassador Thelvax," she said, "let me tell you something about Earth. We remember the Catherian Empire. We remember the Nexus Coalition. We remember the Void Dominion. We remember every civilization your people have destroyed over the past 3 centuries." The ambassador's blood went cold. Those were names from the Empire's classified military history. Civilizations that had been wiped out completely, their technology and knowledge lost forever. Or so they had thought. "Impossible," he breathed. Admiral So Young continued speaking. "Humans didn't evolve on Earth, Ambassador. We were refugees, survivors from every world you've conquered. When your empire destroyed our homelands, a few of us always managed to escape. We found each other. We shared our knowledge. We built new technologies combining the best of every civilization you thought you had eliminated." The Shadow Fleet began to move. The ships didn't fly like normal vessels. They seemed to slide through space, bending the very fabric of reality around them. "Earth wasn't just our hiding place," So Young said. "It was our workshop. For 300 years, we've been preparing for this day. Every empire you destroyed contributed something to what you see before you. Catherian gravity manipulation, Nexus quantum computing, void dimensional engineering. All of it merged with human determination and patience. On the Valian bridge, alarms began to sound. Their sensors were detecting energy readings beyond their understanding. The Shadow Fleet's weapons were powering up, and the power levels were impossible. You came here expecting to conquer another primitive world, Admiral So Young said, and for the first time her voice carried emotion. Cold, absolute fury. Instead, you found the graveyard of empires. Every species you've destroyed is about to get their revenge. Ambassador Thelvax finally understood. The frightened humans, the weak defenses, the desperate surrender, all of it had been an act. Earth hadn't been hiding because they were afraid. They had been hiding because they were patient. All ships, Admiral So Young commanded, engage the enemy. It's time to collect what the galaxy owes us. The Shadow Fleet opened fire, and the darkness between stars lit up with weapons that shouldn't exist. The hunt had begun, and this time the Valian Empire was the prey. The first shot from the Shadow Fleet didn't look like much. A thin beam of blue light reached out from the event horizon and touched the side of the Valian dreadnought. For a moment nothing happened. Then a section of the alien ship's hull simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not blown apart, gone as if it had never been there in the first place. The beam had cut through 15 meters of advanced armor like it was made of paper. Impossible, Ambassador Thelvax screamed.
Return fire! All weapons!
The Valian dreadnought unleashed its full arsenal. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains fired at the human flagship. Missile swarms that could destroy entire fleets launched from hidden tubes. Energy beams that had cracked planets struck the event horizon with enough force to shatter moons. The Shadow Fleet's flagship didn't even slow down. The weapons passed through it like it wasn't there. Some kind of shield technology made the ship exist in a different space than the attacks. The missiles flew through empty air where the ship appeared to be, while the event horizon continued moving forward completely unharmed. Report, Thelvax demanded. Our weapons have no effect, his gunner reported, panic creeping into his voice. They're using some kind of dimensional shielding. The ship exists in normal space for attacking, but shifts into another dimension to avoid our fire. Commander Dong Hyun led the Shadow Fleet's attack wing in vessels that moved like living things. His ship, the Phantom Strike, seemed to dance through space, appearing in one location and then instantly materializing somewhere else. The Valian fighters tried to target it, but their weapons always hit empty space. Strike Wing Alpha, begin targeting sequence, Dong Hyun commanded. His ships attacked from angles that shouldn't exist. They appeared above, below, and inside the Valian formation simultaneously. Their weapons fired beams of pure gravity that crushed enemy fighters into balls of compressed metal. Some shots created miniature black holes that sucked in everything within 100 kilometers. Lieutenant Yoon-ji commanded fighter squadrons that looked more like metal insects than spacecraft. Her vessels changed shape as they flew, growing new weapons when they needed them, shifting their hulls to become more maneuverable or more heavily armored as the battle required. Dragon Squadron, target their weapon systems, she ordered. Her fighters swarmed over the Valian dreadnought like angry bees. They landed on the hull and began to change again, extending metal tentacles that burrowed into the alien armor. Within minutes, the tentacles had grown through the ship's internal systems, taking control of weapons, engines, and life support. Sir, the Valian tactical officer reported to Ambassador Thelvax, we're losing control of our own ship. Something is rewriting our computer systems from the inside. How is that possible? The human fighters aren't just ships, sir. They're some kind of technological organism. They're converting our hull into more of themselves. On the Shadow Fleet flagship, Admiral So Young watched the battle with calm satisfaction. This was what 300 years of preparation looked like. Every piece of technology the Valians were seeing came from civilizations they had destroyed, improved and combined by human engineers who had never forgotten what had been taken from them. Target their command ship, she ordered. I want Ambassador Thelvax to understand exactly what he's dealing with. The event horizon fired its main weapon. The beam didn't travel through space, it simply appeared inside the Valian dreadnought, bypassing all shields and armor. The weapon reached through dimensions the Valians didn't know existed, striking directly at the ship's power core. But instead of exploding, the power core began to change. The energy that had powered the Valian weapons was converted into something else, fuel for the Shadow Fleet. The massive alien ship began to dim as its power was drained away and fed to the human vessels. We're losing all power, the Valian engineer reported. Whatever they're doing, it's turning our own energy against us. Ambassador Thelvax finally realized the truth. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The Shadow Fleet wasn't just more advanced than the Valian Empire. It was operating on principles that the Empire couldn't understand. These weapons and ships combined the knowledge of hundreds of civilizations, refined by 3 centuries of human patience and planning. Captain Tai Min commanded one of the Shadow Fleet's heavy cruisers. His ship was armed with nanite weapons that could convert enemy vessels into raw materials, then use those materials to build more weapons. As Valian fighters approached his position, he fired clouds of microscopic machines that swarmed over the alien ships. Within minutes, the fighters were transformed into additional ammunition for Timon's guns. The nanites didn't just destroy, they recycled everything they touched, turning the enemy's own forces into weapons to use against them. Admiral, Taman reported, we've converted 60% of their fighter wing. Should we begin targeting their support vessels? Proceed, Admiral So-Young replied, but leave their command ship intact. I want Ambassador Thelvax alive to deliver our message. The battle was over before it really began. The Valian dreadnought floated helplessly in space, its weapons offline, its hull partially converted by nanite infection, its power core feeding energy to the very fleet that had defeated it. The smaller Valian ships had been destroyed, converted, or captured within the first hour. Admiral So-Young opened a communication channel to the disabled dreadnought. Ambassador Thelvax, she said pleasantly, I have a message for your empire. Are you listening? The ambassador's voice came through broken and defeated. We surrender, please, show mercy. Mercy? So-Young laughed, but there was no humor in it. Did you show mercy to the children of Kitharos when you burned their schools? Did you show mercy to the elders of the Nexus when you turned them into slaves? Did you show mercy to any of the 300 civilizations you've destroyed? She paused, letting the silence stretch across space. But I am not like you, Ambassador. I will show you the mercy you never gave to others. You will live. You will return to your empire, and you will give them this message. The event horizon fired again, but this time the beam carried information instead of destruction. In seconds, the Valian computers received detailed star maps showing the location of every Valian world, every military base, every colony in their empire. You have 72 hours, Admiral So-Young said, her voice carrying across all communication channels. Evacuate your military installations. Remove your fleets from occupied worlds. Return to your home system. If you do not comply, we will come for you, she gestured, and the Shadow Fleet began to spread out across space. Individual ships preparing for faster-than-light jumps. We are the children of everyone you destroyed, she continued. We are their memory, their anger, and their justice. For 300 years, you have been the hunters. Now you are the prey. Captain Tamin spoke up from his ship. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting Valian military bases in the Arcturus system. Should we begin the hunt? Yes, So-Young replied. All ships begin jumping to your assigned targets. It's time to repay an old debt. The Shadow Fleet vanished into faster-than-light speed, leaving only empty space and the broken remains of what had been the Empire's most powerful dreadnought. Ambassador Thelvax sat in his damaged command chair, staring at screens that showed impossible readings. The human ships hadn't just moved faster than light, they had moved faster than his sensors thought was possible. The hunter had become the hunted, and the hunt was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the Shadow Fleet had darkened the skies above Earth. The Valian Empire was gone, collapsed in a matter of weeks as the human ships struck every military installation, every fleet base, every symbol of imperial power across 300 star systems. President Han Su stood before the newly formed Galactic Council in the Great Hall of New Geneva. Representatives from over 200 species filled the chamber, beings that had been slaves under the Valian Empire just months before, now free to govern themselves for the first time in centuries. The hall was built in the ancient human style, with tall windows that let in natural light and walls decorated with symbols from every civilization the Empire had destroyed. But the most impressive feature was the ceiling, which showed a real-time map of the galaxy with small lights representing every liberated world. Fellow beings of the galaxy, Han Su began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Today marks not just the end of the Valian Empire, but the beginning of a new age. An age where no single power can destroy entire civilizations. An age where the strong protect the weak instead of enslaving them. The crowd listened in respectful silence. Many of these beings had spent their entire lives as slaves. They had never imagined they would one day sit in a council chamber as equals. making decisions about their own futures. For too long, the president continued, empires have risen to prey on smaller, weaker worlds. They grow strong by destroying others, consuming entire civilizations to feed their hunger for power. But we have learned something important. The destroyed are never truly gone. They survive. They remember, and eventually they return. He gestured to a section of the hall where human officers sat alongside representatives from other species. Admiral So Young was there, wearing her new uniform as Supreme Commander of the Commonwealth Defense Force. Director Sun Mi sat nearby, now serving as coordinator for the resettlement of liberated worlds. Humanity did not defeat the Valian Empire alone, Hansu said. We were simply the keepers of knowledge that belonged to all of you. Every ship in our Shadow Fleet carried technology from the Catherians, the Nexus Coalition, the Void Dominion, and dozens of other civilizations. We were the memory of the galaxy, preserving what the Empire thought it had destroyed forever. In the back of the hall, former Valian Admiral Korath shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He was one of the few high-ranking Valians who had survived the collapse of their empire. Most had fled to the outer rim of the galaxy, trying to rebuild with whatever ships and resources they could save. Korath had chosen to stay and face judgment for his people's crimes. The question now, President Hansu continued, is how we prevent this from happening again. How do we ensure that no future empire can rise to threaten the freedom of peaceful worlds? Admiral So Young stood up from her seat. The hall fell completely silent. Everyone knew her story now, how she had spent 30 years preparing Earth's defenses, how she had coordinated with hidden survivors across the galaxy, how she had led the Shadow Fleet in the destruction of the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. The answer, she said simply, is that we never stop watching, never stop preparing. The Commonwealth will establish hidden defense networks on every member world. We will share our technology freely. We will train your people to defend themselves, and we will maintain the Shadow Fleet as a sword hanging over the head of anyone who dreams of conquest. She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Green dots represented Commonwealth worlds, now numbering over 400. Yellow dots showed independent systems that traded with the Commonwealth, but remained neutral. Red dots marked the few remaining Valian strongholds and other potential threats. We have identified 17 different groups that might try to fill the power vacuum left by the Valian collapse, So Young explained. Pirates, warlords, and the remnants of other conquered empires. None of them are strong enough to threaten us now, but empires have a way of growing quickly when nobody is watching. Director Sun Mi stood and addressed the council. The Commonwealth is not an empire. We do not conquer or control. We protect and preserve. Every world is free to leave at any time. Every species is free to govern itself according to its own customs and beliefs. But in return, we ask that you help us watch for new threats and remember the lessons of the past. The representatives began to murmur among themselves. This was a new concept for many of them, a military alliance that didn't demand tribute or obedience, but simply cooperation and mutual defense. Former Admiral Korath raised his hand and was granted permission to speak. He walked slowly to the center of the hall, looking older than his years. The crimes of the Valian Empire weighed heavily on his shoulders. I have seen what happens when a civilization believes it is superior to all others, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. My people convinced themselves that we were bringing order to the galaxy, that the species we conquered were better off as part of our empire. We told ourselves that might made right and that the weak deserved to be ruled by the strong. He looked around the hall at the faces of beings whose worlds his people had destroyed. I was wrong. We were all wrong. The strength of a civilization is not measured by how many others it can conquer, but by how many others it can protect. I pledge that the remaining Valian worlds will join the Commonwealth and work to make amends for what we have done. The hall erupted in discussion. Some representatives wanted to reject the Valian offer, arguing that they couldn't be trusted. Others believed that redemption was possible if the Valians proved their change was real. President Hansu raised his hand for silence. The Commonwealth believes in second chances, he said. But trust must be earned. The Valian worlds will be welcomed, but they will be watched carefully. Their fleets will be limited, their weapons monitored, and their actions observed. If they prove they have truly changed, they will be full members. If not, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Admiral So Young activated another display, this one showing the edge of the galaxy. There's something else we need to discuss, she said grimly. Long-range sensors have detected signals from beyond the galactic rim. Large fleets approaching from dark space. We don't know who they are or what they want, but they're using technology we don't recognize. The hall fell silent. Just when they thought they had achieved peace, a new threat was approaching. How long until they arrive? Asked Representative Yix from the former Cytherian worlds. 18 months, possibly less, So Young replied. Whatever is coming, it's bigger than the Valian Empire ever was. We need to be ready. President Hansu stepped forward again. This is why the Commonwealth exists, he said firmly. Not just to enjoy peace when we have it, but to prepare for the battles that are coming. We are the children of every civilization that ever refused to surrender. We are the memory of every people who ever stood up to tyranny, and we will be ready. He looked around the hall at the representatives of hundreds of worlds, beings who had been scattered and broken just months before, now united in common purpose. The galaxy belongs to all of us, Hansu declared. Not to empires, not to conquerors, but to every species that calls it home. We will defend it together, as we should have done from the beginning. The representatives rose to their feet in unanimous approval. Outside the Great Hall, the lights of New Geneva twinkled in the gathering dusk. In orbit above Earth, the ships of the Shadow Fleet waited patiently, their dark hulls invisible against the stars. Somewhere in the depths of space, new threats were approaching. But this time they would not find scattered, defenseless worlds waiting for conquest. They would find the Commonwealth, the children of 1,000 civilizations, united and ready. The hunters were coming, but the galaxy was no longer defenseless. The real war for freedom was just beginning, and humanity had taught the galaxy an important lesson. No matter how powerful an empire becomes, the oppressed always remember, and eventually, they always return. In the darkness between stars, Admiral So Young's ships waited and watched, ready to protect the galaxy from whatever came next. The Shadow Fleet had become the guardian of the Commonwealth, and they would never again allow the strong to prey upon the weak. The age of empires was over. The age of the Commonwealth had begun,